Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
You know.
Another day.
Yep. Yep.
Lots of fun reading.
Oh, so much.
I'm
Good
so
though.
over it. I'm so tired of reading.
Mm-hmm.
I don't read for fun anymore. I used to read for fun, and then I went back to school.
Yeah. I read for fun during the breaks.
I don't even do that anymore. I binge watch Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime.
That's good too. That's
Yeah.
good.
Whatever I can do to take my mind off of reality.
Yeah, I feel that. What's your major?
Marriage and family studies.
Same.
Yeah. There's a lot of us.
Yeah.
Mostly women. Surprise, surprise.
Look at that.
That's a cute picture.
It is. Hi, Anessa.
Hi. Sorry, I'm trying to start my video. I definitely don't look cute today.
Oh, don't worry.
Just woke up.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Just having a day.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat. Yeah.
So close to the end of the week.
Yeah.
Hi, Melody.
Hi.
Hi, Zach.
Hey.
You're just waiting on Eliza then? Sweet. How's everybody's day going?
Good.
That's good. It's good.
So are you just focusing on information processing?
Yeah. The meeting only has to be 30 minutes. So, and I felt like information processing model was kind of a lot to talk about. So I thought maybe it would fill the time, and then if it doesn't, then we can pick something else. I'm recording this, by the way. Lead student has to record the meeting, so.
Cool.
It's just, there you go. Yeah, sorry it wasn't so smooth this week. First week always has a lot of, hiccups in the planning.
That's true.
So there you go. I think we'll give Eliza another minute and then we'll just get started. So, where's everybody from?
Utah.
Same. Where in Utah?
I live in Orem.
Oh, nice. I lived in Provo up until last month, and now I live in Kaysville.
Oh, okay.
It's a little bit of a jump.
I'm a military brat, so this is home now. But
Yeah.
yeah. And I realize I'm the old lady of this group.
All good. It's all good. What about the rest of you? Where are you from? Oh, here's Eliza. Hi, Eliza.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. You guys.
Good.
What do we have here today? We've got Beth. Hi. And then, sorry, I have kind of a cold, so I'm a little raspy.
No worries. Well, unless anyone else wants to share where they're from.
I'm from Seattle.
Seattle, nice.
Oh, I lived in Bremerton when I was a little kid.
I lived there when I got married. That's awesome.
Nice.
Cool.
Where are you from, Anessa?
Arizona. So.
Very cool. Zach?
I'm from Idaho, so
Are you in Rexburg?
I am right now, yeah.
So,
Very cool. Eliza,
I'm from California.
where in California?
The Bay.
The Bay? Very cool. I used to live in Orange County.
Oh, okay, very nice.
my husband's from the Bay Area.
Oh, really? What part?
I don't know if you'll know it, Petaluma.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Well, then let's just get started. I'm the lead student this week. And today, so this meeting is going to be about 30 minutes. And we're going to talk about the information processing model. Also, just a heads up, my baby is sleeping. She is not the most stable sleeper. So if she wakes up, I might have to duck out for a minute if she wakes up, just to get her back to sleep. Hopefully she stays asleep. But who knows? If I had known, if the planning for this meeting had gone a little bit more smoothly and I had had time to prepare, I would have had something specific to talk about for the information processing model. But since I pulled it out of my head this morning, an hour and a half ago, I don't. So I just kind of wanted to talk about it in general, because personally I found it a little bit hard to understand. So I was just thinking we could maybe go over the basics of it, and maybe the question on the reading reflections study guide, where just, describe the model and its contributions and limitations. And so there you go. That's just kind of where I thought we'd go with this. And we'll go until, let's go until 11:35 because we're starting a little bit late, and then.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't really know how to start from there. So I guess I understand the information processing idea that, like, our brains are kind of like computers that take in stimuli and then an information, and then kind of and then it's processed and stored in different stages. I guess that just then, I don't know, do any of you like understand how it then applies to cognitive development?
For me, I thought it was interesting, just thinking about like little babies, and they first put in, like, there was the response or their input, and they register it. And I think that was interesting because you think about like little infants registering something, and like language, for example, they like, that is a process that they are still registering, and they're slowly getting bit by bit. So it slowly is moving into like out of sensory my goodness, is it register? It's like something register, into short term, and then into long term. Correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. So that to me was interesting, just because I was thinking about like how like a child just learns a language, but it takes a while. So just the process of like, when does it move into long term, and how? Because I don't know, for me that was interesting, just because like they do have to slowly take that input and then move it into long term. So
yeah. So I'm gonna share my screen with you real quick to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. So are you talking about this right here?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Let me look at it. Yeah, I guess.
The model of information processing. So you're talking about how they get the stimulus input here, and then it has a minute in the sensory register before it goes to the short-term or long-term memory.
Yeah, and that's like, for me, I don't know how long it stays in that first one, because they don't really, I guess I just wonder how it applies to a child or an infant. Like, how long does something stay in their long-term memory?
Yeah.
Short.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, guys. I'm so bad at this.
You're doing fine.
So you're asking how long does it stay in their long-term memory, or how long does it stay in the sensory registers?
I don't know if there's an actual answer. I think I read the book, so I don't know if there's an answer to it.
There's
Yeah.
an answer, just not in this book. It doesn't really specify it, but
Oh, really?
I took a class last semester that focused a lot on the brain and this part just for like brains in general. And with the sensory register part, it only ever stays like a couple of seconds and then it goes to short term. And that's where it stays until it goes into your long-term memory.
So
Oh.
does it go to short term regardless of whether or not attention is applied? Because I thought that it was like, so something comes in through your senses, and then either you attend to it or you don't. And then if you attend to it, then it goes to short term. But if you don't, it just leaves.
That could be it. I thought that it always went there, and then it depends on if it makes it to the long-term memory.
Yeah.
But it's between one of those two is where the information would get lost.
That next paragraph talks about how it will, like, by attending to it, it will increase the chances that it will transfer to short-term memory. And so there's probably some things that will automatically just kind of move over, but then there's others that probably, like, you know, if you notice something as you're walking, like, you're not going to put attention to that, so it'll probably leave.
So a mix of the two. Nice. Nailed it.
Sweet. Okay, so then it goes, if we're looking back at this, so it goes to the sensory register, then you attend to the things you want to remember, and it goes to the short-term memory store, and then you have to store it in the long term. So, I'm sorry, I should have prepared better.
Attending seems to happen in just a few seconds. So like, it's like a quick reaction almost. Like either you're interested or you're not.
Right. Okay, so then when we're talking about babies.
I mean, babies, I think right there, I mean, like you said, the attention to something, I mean, that's something that is constantly getting their attention. So maybe that's it. So that would immediately put it in long term, because it's something they're exposed to, I would say, pretty frequently. So that would put language in the long-term memory versus short-term, because they're exposed to it so frequently.
Okay. So okay, so I'm just gonna stop sharing real quick because I think we've gotten the model. So then if we're looking at the question from the study guide, it says describe how that, so we just looked at the information processing system, the model, and so now how does that contribute to our view of cognitive development in infants and children? So I wrote in my answer that it helps scientists to better understand infants and toddlers as complex cognitive beings. How do you think that it does that? How does the information processing model help scientists to see infants as complex cognitive beings, in your opinion?
Well, there's a paragraph in the book that I thought kind of said it pretty clearly, where it says that it's talking about what researchers believe, and it says that they believe several different aspects improve, and that's the basic capacity of its stores, especially with working memory, the speed with which information is worked on, and the functioning of the central executive. So as those like work together and grow, then children are becoming more complex beings and then continue to grow and develop. So I think that that's a definite contributor to that.
Okay, so scientists are looking at how different aspects of the information processing system improve over time, and that's how they...
I think
that makes sense. Ivy, do you have any thoughts on that? Or any?
I'm just thinking back to when my kids were babies and them learning things, and when it's something shiny and new and fascinating, then they remember it. But when it's just something that's there every day, they just don't think about it. Like, I think it's like wallpapers, what was described. But it is fascinating when you actually get to watch a child develop that and see that and start retrieving stuff from long term. And I don't know, it's fascinating to think about how the brain works so fast and slow at the same time. The older you get, the slower it gets, FYI. But I mean, it makes sense when they explain it, and you can go, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense, especially like the short term and the long term retrieval and everything. But I think everything that everybody said is it's pretty much spot on. I mean, all I had written down was just the basics of what they were. So.
Okay. So then.
Sorry.
No,
I was gonna say, I feel like knowing that they use this process shows that they're more aware of their surroundings than we think that they are, and shows that they're actually like absorbing everything, around them, and either like it stays with them for a short time, or it's something that they, develop all their other processes of thinking and their other development. So I don't know. I think that shows that you really have to be careful of the things you say and do and like surround babies with, because they'll remember it.
Well, what's interesting too is like they don't remember specific details, but they remember the feelings that they had with those things, those situations, and how it made them feel. Mm-hmm. So like my 17-year-old, when she was little, she did not like anyone but me after a certain amount of time. And it wasn't that anything happened. She just remembers feeling really safe with me and not safe with everybody else. So I think it goes back to like the brain, the cognition, everything is there, but then it also affects the emotional part of how they react. And that's why sometimes they like don't like something later on, or they do. My husband's sister tried to drown him when he was a baby by giving him a bath, and he's 41 years old and still doesn't like water in his face. So like it's in there, it's stored in there somewhere what happened to him, even if he can't remember it. But it's there. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, don't be sorry. No, I definitely think that too. I think I remember in the reading they were talking about the different things that like the unexpected event model that they were doing, where they would put a toy in the thing and then they put a screen up, and the child would watch them put another toy behind the screen, but when the screen would drop, there would just be one. And so the child looked longer at that. Do you guys remember that experiment? Yeah. And I remember thinking that was so amazing that kids that little can understand that kind of
voodoo.
Yeah. It also made me think of a time when my daughter was little. I mean, she's still little. She's 8 months old. But when she was littler, where she's bottle fed, and she was hungry one day, and I didn't realize how, like, it wasn't quite time for her to eat yet, so I didn't realize she was hungry. But my father-in-law was playing with he was drinking from like a water bottle, like with a screw cap, and it had like a pink liquid in it. And my daughter reached for it, and we thought she just wanted to play with it because it was pink, and it was red, and red, she likes the color red. And but she grabbed it and she put it in her mouth, and then she immediately started to cry, and we realized that she had made an association, like she somehow knew what a bottle was. Like conceptually, she knew that was a bottle, and even though it didn't look anything like her bottle and the liquid didn't look like the formula, she had made that connection. So that was just something that I thought of that was like kind of that shows that amazing thing that the kids are working on in their brains all the time, because she was like 4 months old. And so I'm like, how in the world did she make that connection between this water bottle and the bottle that she gets her meals from? So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Other thoughts on that part of the information processing model?
I think it's interesting that these like understanding of events. They all occur about the same time that their vision does. So I think that I don't know, like there's that debate of whether like they actually do understand things or not. And I think a lot of that has to do with maybe the fact that they just can't see very well, and so their brains just kind of have a hard time. I guess I don't know. I guess making sense of the world, and so about that 4 months when I guess like infants are able to see, I think that really helps and kind of I guess rapidly expands their knowledge, and they're able to understand things because they're able to see the world, I guess, a lot better than they could. I don't know if there's a correlation there or not, but
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. That you're right, that it does kind of come around the same time that they can see. I wonder if they've done studies on, I can't remember if they talked about it in the reading or not, if they've done studies on newborns and what they, because I know they've done studies on newborns or at least very young infants and what they can hear. You know, they did where they gave them like a pacifier or something and they sucked more when they heard their mother's voice versus someone else's voice. But I wonder if they've done it on vision. That's interesting. Other thoughts on that? What about the contributions and limitations of the information processing view? So we kind of talked about the contributions where it helped scientists to understand more about how kids are more like actively involved in their cognition than we thought they were. They're not just little, my husband called our daughter a grub. He's like, she's just a little grub. She doesn't do anything. So they're not just grubs. They're actually involved in their cognition. So I guess that's one of the contributions. Are there other contributions that you can think of?
That's a good question.
I don't know if this one applies, but I was thinking of like the little noises the infants make, and as parents kind of mimic those noises and they kind of practice the sound and that sort of thing. I don't know how would put that in the scale of like they're contributing or if they're just mimicking. But that's kind of one that I thought of.
Yeah.
I don't know, would you guys put that in the same realm? It's like, oh, they're contributing versus, oh, they're just mimicking.
Well, I mean, either way, mimicking sounds like that. It's encouraged to help their speech development. So even if if it's not initially contributing, it's definitely on the path to it. So either way, it's a definite good thing.
Yeah, for sure. I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. What about the theory itself? How does the theory itself contribute to our knowledge of infant cognition? One thing that I found in the book right here, it says that the central strength of the information processing research analyzes cognition in its various components, such as perception, attention, memory, and categorization. So rather than thinking of cognition as this like whole like big picture kind of thing, it talks about each step of the cognitive process one by one, and the contributions and how each one has to do with development. So that was just something that it said, but it also said that that it's also it says its greatest drawback as well. Information processing has had difficulty putting these components back together into a broad comprehensive theory. It says that on page 165. So I don't know. That's something. What do you guys think about that? I feel like I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
So what do you guys think of that, about the dividing cognition up into its separate components?
Do you mean like dividing it like the sensory register versus the short term versus the long term?
More like here, let me show you the paragraph I'm looking at. Right here. So it analyzes cognition into its components. There's perception, attention, memory, and categorization. So I guess that's separate then from the actual model that we were looking at. I'm sorry, I told you I didn't understand this concept very well. So
I think what it's saying there definitely supports what you're saying, that it's kind of hard to like put it all back together. When we separate it into the components, it's pretty easy to understand. We can get the categorization, we can get the perception, and we can get all those things. But in trying to put it all together and like having an end all, response to something, it's a little more difficult to do with the information processing view of things.
Yeah, and yeah, it says that right here, that it's its greatest drawback, that you can't it also says that, it says here that one approach to overcoming that is to combine it with Piaget's theory of development, like his stages and stuff, which, I mean, I read the chapter, so I did read that, but I didn't really think about it until just now. That probably would help. So I guess okay. So I'm thinking for the next, we have got 10 minutes left. So do we want to talk about, we can talk about either all of the different components of the theory. So we can talk about categorization, memory, attention, perception, those, or we could talk about how it lines up with Piaget's model. What do you think would be more helpful?
I have a quick question. I might be in here and I just don't remember reading it. Did it say who came up with this theory? I don't remember reading that, so I don't know if you guys know the answer to that.
I don't think it does. It just says information processing researchers, that they agree with Piaget.
It's a group effort, who knows? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it attributes it to a specific.
Well, then, we need to know the information that we don't need to know. That's fine.
There you go. It doesn't attribute it to a specific theorist, just.
Okay. Sorry, I interrupted you to ask that question.
Oh, so please interrupt me whenever you have something to say. So I'm not just dead. So I guess, do we want to go through the different aspects of the model from perception to cognition or categorization? Or we could also talk about how it lines up with the Piaget's model. We've got about 10 minutes left in the meeting.
Either way.
Right. Okay, well let's go through, unless anyone has strong opinions either way. Let's just go through the different components, starting with attention. So I'm just going to keep sharing my screen, because then we can all look at the textbook and I'll be looking at this. Okay, so this section talks about how attention evolves from kind of like what Zach was saying about how it says about 2 to 3 months of age, they shift from focusing on single high contrast features to exploring objects and patterns more thoroughly. So it does correspond with visual development. I remember when my daughter was a newborn, she only looked at things that were like, like stripes and checkers and whatever. And then later she got into more interesting things. So Does someone else want to maybe take a stab at explaining the attention aspect of the model?
Can you scroll down a little bit?
Yeah. How far?
That's good.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's so hard to put some of these into specific words, terms, because I understand like the concept, like I was saying before, you understand the concept of things, but putting it in the actual terms that they want you to put down on a quiz is very difficult.
It is.
I found something interesting. So I think it's cool how they were talking about like the amount of time it takes an infant to like really internalize things. It says that newborn babies takes about like 3 or 4 minutes to really like understand everything that's going on visually to them. And then by like 4 or 5 months, they only need a couple of seconds. And that definitely goes in line with what you were saying about like how the visual definitely lines up with how their brain works, because as they see more things, then they're able to actually internalize it more. And that's pretty good like support and evidence for that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it also has to do as well with habituation. Mm-hmm. So kind of like what you said, I mean, like, you know, when your baby's a newborn, the car seat is fascinating because she's never seen it before. But then as she gets older, it's just like she doesn't have to pay attention to it anymore. So she can like see it, process it a lot faster because she's habituated to it.
I think of how, going off of that, I think about how if you're playing with an infant, there's a point where if you're doing the same action over and over and over, that they're overstimulated, and that's usually.
Oh no. We lost you, Eliza.
Oh no.
Uh-oh. Oops. Are you back?
Oh, did I cut out? I'm so sorry.
Yes, you cut out while you were saying overstimulated.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was like, there's an awkward long pause after that. Okay.
No.
No, I was just saying that like when you play with a baby and they become overstimulated and they try to get away or they start crying or something, I think that just kind of reiterates what you.
Oops. Oh, no. But I think I know what she's talking about. I think they talked about it in the book too, that babies can't like. We lost you again, Eliza. Are you with us again?
I am now. I'm so sorry. I'm done talking. You guys just go for it.
Sorry about that. Well, I was just saying that I think I know what you're talking about. They talked about that infants can't necessarily drag their attention away from something, from a stimulus. So they get, rather than just like, you know, turning away, they get overstimulated.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for explaining.
Other thoughts on attention? Okay, let's move on to memory, which I think we talked about when we were talking about the general model, the whole like model of the information processing theory. We kind of talked about memory. I thought it was interesting how they talked about operant conditioning and the kicking, the mobile. I think that that's something interesting about that they remember, you know, oh, if I kick this, it moves. Does anyone have other thoughts about memory, about how the memory, interesting things that you think about how memory plays into the model? Well, I mean, I think the memory part's pretty self-explanatory. Let's skip to, oh, well, I guess this is the next one. So categorization, I think, because it talks about that on the study guide. It says, explain the importance of categorization in cognitive development. So how does the perceptual to conceptual change in categorization occur? What do you guys think about that? Like, what do you think, how does the perceptual to conceptual change occur? And why is categorization important?
So I think that categorization plays a big part in aiding with the memory side of it too, because when you categorize things, you're able to like inhale a lot more information than you normally could. And like babies, as they're like exploring the world around them, they encounter a lot of things on like a daily basis, a lot of new things, and then able to be able to internalize it, they have to have something like categorization to be able to like separate things and understand them more for their little minds so that they can handle everything and be able to actually learn things and continue to grow and go forward.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think it talks about I think it talks about that down here somewhere. It talks about it somewhere in the reading that it helps them make sense of their surroundings, just like you were saying. I think that's definitely very important. Well, so that's the 30 minutes. Does anyone have any final thoughts before we go? Sorry again that this was so clunky. I was not prepared, and I apologize.
That's not your fault.
Yeah, don't worry about it. This was a hard one to articulate a lot of things.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, thanks. So I will post a link to the recording in the discussion board. And so that'll be there if you want to relive this meeting. And it was great to meet all of you. It seems like we're going to be doing different groups, I'm going to stop the recording and before I ask.